Good morning everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of body language and how it can help us detect deception more effectively. Our focus is on mastering practical skills that not only allow us to spot lies but also improve communication across different cultures and professional settings. I'm excited to explore these techniques with you and show how they can make a real difference in both personal and professional interactions. Let's get started. Welcome and thank you for joining this training on detecting lies and deception through body language. Our main goal here is to help you develop practical skills that will enable you to spot deceit by observing nonverbal cues. These insights are valuable and can be applied across different cultures and professional environments, making them versatile tools for your personal and work life. I encourage you to engage fully as we explore these techniques together, unlocking the subtle ways our bodies can reveal the truth. By the end of this training, you'll have a solid understanding of key body language indicators that often suggest deception. This knowledge will give you the confidence to observe and interpret those subtle signs accurately in real situations. Whether you work in security, management, human resources, or simply want to improve your interpersonal trust skills, this course is designed to support your goals. You'll also develop the ability to spot incongruent behavior, those moments when what someone says doesn't quite match their body language. This skill is crucial for assessing credibility through posture and gestures, helping you make better judgments about the people you interact with. Ultimately, all these skills combine to enhance your overall communication effectiveness, making your interactions clearer and more trustworthy. When we talk about lies, we're referring to deliberate falsehoods meant to mislead someone. It's important to realize that deception goes beyond just lying. It includes any act that creates a false belief in another person. This can take many forms, such as outright lies, exaggerations that stretch the truth, omissions where information is left out, or complete fabrications. Recognizing these different forms of deception is crucial, especially when we're trying to detect dishonesty through body language. Equally important is understanding the intent behind these actions, as this helps us avoid jumping to conclusions and improves the accuracy of our judgments. When it comes to detecting deception, body language plays a crucial role because it often reveals feelings and intentions that words might try to hide. The core idea behind spotting deception is to look for signs that don't match what someone is saying. These inconsistencies can give us important clues. To do this effectively, we focus on several key areas: facial expressions, eye movements, gestures, posture, and even the tone of voice. However, it's not just about noticing one or two gestures, it's recognizing clusters of these signs together that makes deception detection more reliable. At the same time, context is absolutely essential. The same gesture can mean different things depending on the situation. Finally, it's important to remember that no single gesture on its own can definitively prove someone is being deceitful. It's the combination and context that truly matter. Facial expressions are a powerful way we show our emotions, often without even realizing it. Now, micro-expressions are like quick flashes, very brief, involuntary facial movements that last less than a second. These tiny expressions can give away a person's true feelings, even if their words suggest otherwise. But spotting micro-expressions isn't easy. It takes careful observation and plenty of practice to read them accurately. Interestingly, certain micro-expressions, such as brief signs of fear, guilt, or contempt, are often associated with deception. By becoming more aware of these subtle cues, you can better detect when someone's emotions don't align with what they're saying. When it comes to detecting deception, the eyes can offer valuable clues. We can learn a lot by paying attention to gaze direction, how often someone blinks, changes in pupil size, and their overall eye contact. However, it's important not to rely on common stereotypes, like assuming that looking away automatically means someone is lying. Instead, what really matters is observing how their eye behavior changes from their usual baseline. For example, if someone suddenly blinks more frequently or their pupils dilate, this can indicate cognitive stress, which is often linked to lying. Also, maintaining steady eye contact or suddenly breaking it can be significant, but we always need to consider the context and individual differences to interpret these signals accurately. When people are nervous or trying to hide the truth, their hands often give them away. They might cover their mouths or touch their faces a lot, which can be signs of discomfort or deception. Another common clue is that liars often make fewer gestures overall. This happens because they're trying to control their body language and avoid revealing anything unintentionally. On the other hand, sometimes people use exaggerated hand movements as a way to distract from what they're saying, hoping to draw attention away from the truth. It's important to watch for inconsistencies, like when gestures don't match the words. For example, someone might nod their head while saying no, which clearly conflicts and signals contradiction. To get better at detecting deception, practice comparing what someone's hands are doing with what they're actually saying, looking out for any mismatches or unusual behavior. When we look at body posture, it tells us a lot about a person's comfort level. Someone who feels at ease will have a relaxed posture, while discomfort often shows up through more guarded or tense positions. For example, people who are being deceptive often lean away from others, close their bodies by crossing arms or legs, or even turn slightly to avoid full engagement. These behaviors can signal a desire to distance themselves from the conversation or hide something. You might also notice subtle signs of tension in their posture, like shifting their weight frequently or appearing stiff. These small movements can reveal inner discomfort or stress. On the other hand, open postures, where the body is facing toward the other person with uncrossed arms, generally indicate honesty and openness. Closed postures, as we just mentioned, can suggest the opposite, potential deceit or defensiveness. However, it's really important to remember that posture is heavily influenced by culture. What might be considered a closed posture in one culture could be normal or polite in another. So, always take cultural context into account before jumping to conclusions about someone's truthfulness based solely on their body orientation. When someone is being deceptive, their voice and speech patterns often give away subtle clues. One of the most common signs is a change in voice pitch. Usually, it rises because lying causes stress. You might also notice that their speech rate changes. They could start talking faster or slower than usual. Alongside this, pauses and hesitations tend to increase, as they take extra time to think up their story. Another important indicator is inconsistency in tone and volume. For example, if the tone doesn't match the words being spoken or if the volume suddenly shifts, that can signal something's off. It's also crucial to pay attention to deviations from a person's typical speech patterns. These changes are often the most telling because they contrast with how someone normally speaks. However, it's essential to remember the importance of knowing a person's baseline speech behavior. Some people naturally vary their tone or pace, so without that baseline, it's easy to misinterpret these signs. Understanding these nuances helps us better detect when someone might not be truthful. When it comes to detecting deception, it's crucial to focus on clusters of behavioral signals instead of isolated actions. One single sign by itself is rarely enough to prove someone is being untruthful. Instead, you need to observe multiple indicators that don't quite fit together. These incongruent signals increase your confidence that something might be off. It's also important to pay attention to patterns over time, rather than making quick judgments based on a single moment. Consistent behavior across various instances gives you a much clearer and more reliable picture. When we talk about body language, it's important to remember that its meaning can vary significantly depending on cultural context. A gesture or expression that signals one thing in one culture might mean something entirely different in another. For example, a behavior that might indicate deceit or discomfort in one society could be perfectly normal or acceptable in another. On top of cultural differences, individual personality and personal habits also play a huge role in how nonverbal signals are expressed. Everyone has their own unique way of conveying feelings or intentions through body language, so it's important not to jump to conclusions based solely on these cues. To avoid misinterpretations, it's crucial to steer clear of stereotypes or making quick assumptions about someone's behavior. Instead, take the time to understand what is normal for that particular individual. Developing this baseline knowledge helps us distinguish between genuine signals and quirks that are simply part of someone's normal behavior. Finally, approaching body language interpretation with respect and cultural sensitivity not only improves our accuracy but also ensures that we communicate more effectively and ethically. Being aware of and honoring cultural norms while applying detection techniques makes all the difference. When observing and assessing body language, the first step is to establish a baseline. This means watching the person when they're relaxed to understand what their normal behavior looks like. Next, use open questions to encourage more natural and spontaneous responses, which gives you a better opportunity to see genuine body language cues. Once you have the baseline, focus on any changes from that baseline. These shifts can be very telling. It's also important to record key signs, either mentally or by taking notes, so you can reflect on them later and avoid missing important details. Finally, be careful not to jump to conclusions based on just one behavior. Context and consistency are crucial for accurate interpretation. When it comes to spotting deception, there are several common behaviors we should watch for. First, avoiding eye contact is a big one. For example, if someone consistently looks away when asked critical questions, that could be a red flag. Next, pay attention to facial expressions that don't match what's being said. Like smiling while delivering serious information, that inconsistency can reveal discomfort or dishonesty. Then there are contradictory gestures, such as nodding your head while verbally saying no. This mismatch between words and body language can be quite telling. Finally, sudden changes in posture or fidgeting often indicate nervousness or unease, especially when specific topics come up. For instance, a job candidate who avoids giving clear answers and starts fidgeting might deserve some follow-up questions. Being aware of these subtle signs really helps us read between the lines and understand what's not being said. When it comes to detecting deception, observing body language remains incredibly powerful. It gives us important clues that technology alone can't fully capture. That said, there are technological tools available, like voice stress analyzers and facial expression software, which can provide valuable additional information. However, it's crucial to remember that these tools are meant to augment our human judgment, not replace it. We need to use technology carefully and ethically, ensuring it supports, rather than dominates, our personal observations and questioning. It's also important to avoid becoming overly reliant on gadgets. Any findings from technology should always be confirmed through careful behavioral analysis. This balanced approach helps us make more accurate and responsible decisions. When it comes to deception detection, respecting privacy is absolutely essential. We should never jump to conclusions or make accusations without solid evidence. This helps maintain trust and fairness. Also, improper use of these techniques can seriously damage relationships and create unnecessary harm, so it's important to handle observations carefully and thoughtfully. Compliance is another key point. We need to make sure everything we do aligns with organizational policies and legal regulations to avoid any issues. Observations should be used as a tool to ask better, more informed questions rather than to label someone or punish them based solely on their body language. Finally, ethical professional conduct is critical. Discretion, fairness, and respect must guide our actions in every setting to uphold integrity and professionalism. In the Enron scandal, one of the key issues was how the company misled investors and employees about its true financial health. This deception wasn't just in what was said, but also in the body language communicated by executives, which often contradicted their words. During hearings, observers noted inconsistent nonverbal cues from top executives, which raised further doubts about their honesty. This case clearly demonstrates why understanding body language is so crucial. especially in high-stakes situations where detecting lies can have significant consequences. It's important to mention that all the information here comes directly from public court records and official reports, ensuring we stick to the facts. In this case study, we see that during critical negotiations, Nokia executives displayed subtle signs of discomfort and avoidance through their body language. Although they spoke confidently, observers noticed micro-expressions revealing underlying stress. These nonverbal cues ultimately influenced the outcomes of the deals being discussed. This example highlights the importance of cultural sensitivity and the need for careful observation when conducting multinational business, reminding us that what is communicated beyond words can be just as impactful. All the information presented here is based on public business reports. When you notice that what someone is saying doesn't match their body language, that's often a sign that something might be off, possibly even deception. For instance, imagine someone saying yes while shaking their head no. This is a clear example of conflicting cues. It's important to observe these mismatches carefully because they can tell you a lot about what the person might really be thinking. However, it's equally important to remember that not all contradictions mean someone is lying. Sometimes nervousness or habitual gestures can cause these inconsistencies. So, rather than jumping to conclusions, it's best to ask follow-up questions and probe a bit deeper to understand the true meaning behind these mixed signals. When building questioning skills, the first step is to ask open-ended questions. These types of questions invite people to elaborate, giving us richer information rather than simple yes or no answers. Next, using pauses effectively is crucial. Giving space after a question allows the person to think carefully and even sometimes correct themselves spontaneously, which can be very revealing. The third step involves designing emotionally engaging questions. When questions tap into emotions, responses tend to be more genuine and can expose inconsistencies. The fourth step is to combine what you hear with what you see. Using both verbal interrogation and nonverbal observation together creates a much clearer and fuller picture of whether someone might be deceptive. Finally, it's important to practice active listening and be ready with responsive follow-up questions. This approach not only shows you're paying attention but also helps you pick up on subtle cues and improve your overall accuracy in detecting deception. When managing your own biases, the first thing to keep in mind is to avoid letting assumptions or personal feelings cloud your judgment. It's easy to jump to conclusions based on what we expect or feel, but doing so can lead to inaccurate assessments. Next, it's important to recognize your own biases and actively question them whenever you're making evaluations. Being aware of these biases helps you to challenge them rather than letting them influence your decisions unconsciously. Another key point is to focus on observable facts and real behavioral changes rather than interpretations or hearsay. This makes your assessment much more reliable. Also, using consistent evaluation methods for everyone ensures fairness and reduces the impact of personal bias. Finally, by maintaining objectivity, you not only improve the quality of your decisions but also build greater trust with others, which is essential for effective and credible assessments. To improve your deception detection skills, it's essential to practice regularly using video examples and role plays. This hands-on approach helps you become more familiar with the subtle cues that indicate deception. Next, seek feedback on your observations from others. Getting input allows you to refine your accuracy and deepen your understanding of these deceptive signals. It's also important to review past cases, both your successes and your mistakes, to learn what strategies worked and where you might need improvement. Staying informed about the latest research in nonverbal communication is crucial as well. New findings can give you fresh insights and help you update your techniques. Finally, remember that ongoing training is what truly builds confidence and sharpens your accuracy over time. The more you practice and learn, the more adept you'll become at detecting deception effectively. When we look at deception detection, it's clear this skill has valuable applications across many industries. Security professionals, for example, rely heavily on reading body language cues to identify potential threats quickly and effectively. In human resources, these skills come into play during recruitment, helping to assess candidates more accurately beyond just their words. In customer service, recognizing signs of dissatisfaction or dishonesty can improve interactions and lead to better outcomes. Law enforcement officers also depend on these techniques throughout their investigations to gather crucial information and detect inconsistencies. Overall, understanding how body language and deception detection apply to such a wide range of fields highlights just how important these skills are in professional settings, making them indispensable tools for many roles. When it comes to body language and deception, there are a lot of common myths that can mislead us. For example, many people believe that avoiding eye contact always means someone is lying, or that crossing arms is a clear sign of deceit. These are oversimplifications and don't hold true in every situation. These stereotypes often lead to errors in judgment because they ignore the complexity of human behavior. That's why understanding nuance and context is so important. It helps us avoid falling into these traps by considering the bigger picture rather than isolated gestures. By recognizing these myths, we can shift our focus toward relying on actual evidence instead of assumptions, making our assessments much more accurate and fair. Avoiding these assumptions ultimately makes us better at interpreting body language in a thoughtful and informed way. When preparing for real-life detection scenarios, the first step is to thoroughly understand the context and background of the interactions you'll be observing. This knowledge provides a foundation that helps you interpret behaviors more accurately. Next, it's important to build rapport with the person you're engaging with. Establishing a connection reduces nervousness and makes the interaction more natural, which in turn improves the reliability of your observations. After that, take time to observe the person's baseline behavior, their normal way of acting when they're relaxed. This baseline is crucial because it allows you to notice any deviations that might indicate something significant. Also, be ready to adapt your approach depending on cultural differences and individual personality traits. What works well with one person might not work with another, so flexibility is key. Finally, make sure you have clear detection goals in mind. Knowing exactly what you want to identify keeps your focus sharp and ensures your observations are purposeful and effective. To wrap up, we first clarified what deception is and explored its various types, giving you a solid foundation. Then, we looked closely at key body language signals, things like facial expressions, eye movement, gestures, posture, and changes in voice, that can all hint at deception. We also stressed that it's crucial to look for clusters of these signs rather than relying on just one isolated indicator, because context matters. Cultural sensitivity and ethical considerations were another important focus, reminding us to observe carefully while respecting differences and maintaining integrity. Finally, we examined real-world case studies to see how these ideas play out in practice. By applying these insights, you'll be better equipped to detect deception accurately and responsibly. Thank you all for your time and attention today. I appreciate your interest and engagement throughout the presentation. If you have any questions or would like to discuss anything further, please feel free to reach out. It's been a pleasure sharing this with you. Here are the key references that have informed our discussion today. First, we have Paul Ekman's book Telling Lies *, now in its 4th edition, which remains a foundational text in understanding deceptive behavior. Then, there's the 2013 study by Berry and colleagues, published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior, focusing specifically on detecting deception through body language analysis. This offers valuable scientific insight into nonverbal cues. Finally, it's important to note that while there are some regional professional development resources on this topic, they can be somewhat limited. I strongly recommend staying up to date with the latest industry reports and training materials to ensure your knowledge remains current and applicable. I want to take a moment to highlight an important disclaimer for this content. This material is designed specifically for training and internal use, so please approach it with caution. While we've made every effort to ensure accuracy, there may still be errors or omissions. The author does not take responsibility for any decisions or actions you might take based on this information. It's crucial to apply your professional judgment and expertise when using these strategies or techniques. Also, this content should not replace specialized legal or professional advice. For any complex legal or regulatory matters, it's essential to consult with qualified specialists. Remember, this information is provided as is, without guarantees of completeness or timeliness.